Craving the coffee flavor you love, but without the caffeine? Kachava's got you covered with their newest coffee flavor. This all-in-one nutrition shake delivers bold, authentic flavor crafted from premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans. Quality nutrition shouldn't be complicated. Just 2 scoops of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake, and you've got 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, and so much more. Whether you're craving that coffee taste to kickstart your morning ritual, or as a nutrient-packed reward to round out your afternoon, Kachava keeps you fueled and satisfied wherever your day takes you. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. And for the times you feel like switching it up, you've got 7 flavors to choose from, all with the highest quality ingredients. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS. New customers get 15% off their first order. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
You know, this is one of those topics that no one really wants to think about, but if you're a parent, a homeowner, married, or helping take care of aging parents, it's something that honestly deserves a little attention. I'm talking about estate planning. And before you tune out thinking it's complicated or expensive, that's actually why I want to mention Trust and Will. Trust and Will makes estate planning feel way less intimidating than it sounds. They offer modern, attorney-designed wills and trusts that you can create online. And the process is surprisingly straightforward. In fact, you can create a will in as little as 30 minutes. That includes things like guardianship for your kids or pets, how your assets are distributed, and even healthcare directives. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones with Trust and Will, the most trusted name in online estate planning. Go to trustandwill.com/future to get 20% off. That's trustandwill.com/future for 20% off. trustandwill.com/FUTURE.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fabulous Friday edition, and even better, the first day of spring edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Well, not officially yet. I think it happens just after 11 o'clock, but close enough for me. Very glad that you're able to spend some time with us here as you get set up for your weekend. It may be the first, well, not complete day, but first bit of spring day that the calendar is telling us about, but it's certainly not a spring-like forecast out there. It was a little chilly this morning, and it was not looking like we're going to see spring-like conditions heading into the weekend, at least at this point. Today, not too bad. A mix of sun and cloud in the forecast and a high of 4 degrees. But things change tonight. We'll start to see some more cloud roll in. We'll start to see a snow-rain mix work its way through the region tonight. Showers mixing with wet snow in the forecast for tomorrow. And again, wet snow expected around Sunday. The accumulation amounts don't look like they're going to be a whole lot. But the same, I don't think, can be said for Monday. There's a system that's working its way here that is going to be a rather lengthy one, I think. We'll get the very latest on it when we bring our meteorologist Allister Aalders into the show in hour number 3 today to give us the very latest. He'll get the new data from Environment Canada and all the modeling and stuff, and we'll get an idea of what we can expect. Is this shovelable this weekend? Is it shovelable on Monday? We know that March break is going to come to an end. I know it goes so quick, doesn't it? Well, today's the last day. Technically Sunday, I guess. And the kids will be back to school on Monday, and it could be in the teeth of another late winter storm, or can we call it an early spring storm at this point? Anyway, Allister Aalders will be here in hour number 3. Gasoline prices are up again this morning, 5.7 cents a liter for gas. We're now at $1.74.4. The news worse for diesel. That now up 9.8 cents, currently at 229.8. I did see a number of stations, at least the stations on my commute in this morning, that were selling diesel above that number. Some of them are in the 30s or low 30s. So it's gone up again. You heard from Mike Eppel that oil prices have been all over the map this morning. When I first got here, things were flat, and now we're starting to see a bit of a decrease on the international oil markets. There's a gap that Mr. Eppel explained in between the West Texas crude, that's the American benchmark, and the international benchmark, which is Brent crude. It's about $12 now, $107.42 for a barrel of crude at this hour. It's down about 1% from yesterday. WTI $94.93. That's down about half a percentage point from yesterday. The all-important gasoline number at New York is just over $3 a gallon. That means it's up by just over 3/100ths of a point. So not a lot of movement there. It's pretty flat, and we'll keep an eye on that because it's getting very expensive out there to buy gasoline. I know that it's impacting some of the perhaps weekend plans for some, at least around the radio station here, who are thinking, well, am I going to fill up the tank, or what are we going to do here? So we will keep our eye on what's going on, and we'll pass along any new information as it becomes available. Now, we saw yesterday the war in Iran, of course, continues. The Americans and the Israelis striking additional sites. The Iranians firing back and again lobbing missiles and drones at their neighbors in the Middle East, saying through communication channels that are sketchy at best, but saying that they are still able to produce missiles, still building them, despite allegations from the President of the United States and the Israelis that they have eliminated their ability to do so, or have severely hampered their ability to do so. And a bunch of allies, that including Canada, that was the UK and France and Japan and Germany, signing on to a document yesterday saying that they will call on Iran to immediately cease all attempts to block the Strait of Hormuz, and are looking at ways to get that supply chain moving again. Now, they were very ambiguous in what those plans were. Reading some of the articles today, the Prime Minister's office reaching out, or the CBC News reaching out to the Prime Minister's office, and got a quote from the Foreign Affairs Minister saying that any potential support would be guided by the needs on the ground, Canada's legal and policy frameworks, and ongoing consultations with partners and allies. Really doesn't say much. But I think that if we're going to see the strait opened and flowing freely, that there's obviously going to have to be some kind of naval commitment, or some kind of commitment to try and get those ships through. What is unfolding in the Persian Gulf right now is something that I think has been missed, is that on all of these tankers and ships that are stuck because they won't transit, they can't get the insurance to transit that chunk of the ocean. There's a growing problem with water and with food for the sailors that are aboard those ships. They've been out there for a long time, probably longer than anticipated. Hearing stories of water and food rationing on board the ships. There's also talk of creating a United Nations humanitarian corridor into the Persian Gulf, or into the Gulf region around the Strait of Hormuz, to alleviate some of that problem, get some food, get some water to these sailors as that continues to rage on. Lots to talk about, of course. We're going to open up the telephone lines after 11 o'clock today. The Friday Free-for-All will take flight, often imitated, never duplicated. And the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty good. I kind of let you steer the ship, to use a naval analogy. And you get a chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind, and we'll continue to do that as long as you use it. I look forward to our conversation. That's going to happen after 11 o'clock today. If you were watching the news last night, you saw that the ongoing saga that is Dartmouth Cove, another salvo fired in that ongoing dispute. This from the CTV News website. A property owner behind the proposed infill project at Dartmouth Cove now restricting access to part of the area, citing issues with Halifax Regional Municipality, which passed a bylaw limiting infilling along the waterfront late last year. A no trespassing sign has now been erected along Dartmouth Cove, warning people that pedestrian and vehicular traffic is prohibited without written permission from the owner of the property. The councillor that represents that area joining me on the telephone line this morning. Hello, Sam Austin.
Good morning.
This was this expected? Do you expect this to happen?
As of Friday last week, I wasn't surprised because on Friday they also fired me off a lawyer letter saying that myself and the organizer of the Save Dartmouth Cove group were personally banned from their property, including the Harbor Trail. So I wasn't surprised when they followed up with an attempt to ban the public this week with a sign.
Sam, I saw a video of you on that trail yesterday. You're walking that dangerous line.
Well, I mean, just because someone puts something on a sign doesn't make it true, right? We're in a dispute with the property owner here. The municipality's contention is they're free to put up signs on their property. They're free to restrict their property, and we don't have rights to all of their land in Dartmouth Cove. We have a 4-meter easement for the benefit of the public for a public trail. And if you're on that trail, the municipality considers that easement open. They would disagree, and rather than this kind of very antagonistic approach that really just harms the public by creating uncertainty, the proper place for this to be settled at this point is a courtroom. We live in a society governed by the rule of law, and they're suing the municipality over this, and this should be decided in court with lawyers making the best arguments and a judge ultimately deciding who is right. And
that was my next question, Sam. Is this legal? Can they do this?
Well, our position is that they can't close the trail. And if they do try to pull another stunt where they drop stuff on it and try and barricade it, the municipality and Build Nova Scotia, because the trail is a joint project between us and the province, will have to respond. But I hope it doesn't come to any of those kind of shenanigans. I hope cooler heads will prevail here. I mean, this kind of putting up a sign, closing the trail, this is just petty, spiteful stuff, right? Like I said, at this point, like the municipality and Atlantic Road, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And in those situations in our society, you go to court and then you settle it there.
For those that might be just tuning in, Sam, what is the issue here? Why is there such contention between that property owner and the city?
Well, I think, they're myths that they didn't get their way on the bylaw that we put forward and that council then approved. They threatened in the lead up to that bylaw that if we passed the bylaw, they would cut off our access to the Harbor Trail. And that was even before we served them notice that they weren't to cross the end of Skokomal Street over there. So, this has kind of been low-key in the offering for a while, that they would retaliate by punishing the public or try. And so not a surprise, but, I hope that they maybe listen to maybe a more conservative lawyer and let this play out in court.
Bruce Wood, who's the CFO of Atlantic Road Construction and Paving, telling CTV News last night that this was never their intention. He went on to say, and I quote, "Every plan that we made throughout the process was to ensure the trail remained open and people had access. Unfortunately, HRM took steps that they did, and that put us into this position." Have you had a dialogue with Atlantic Road Construction or Bruce Wood or anybody else there?
Not in a long time. I talked to them early on in this process, and it takes two to tango on these things. I would say that what Mr. Woods has put forward there to me is utter nonsense. No one's forced them to close the trail. No one's forced that. The municipality still considers the easement valid. They're the ones who are now claiming it's not. Nobody else is doing this. They've threatened, I think this is the third time they've threatened to close the trail. So to suggest that they didn't want to do this, they've been threatening this for a while now. They drop barricades on the thing on property they don't control to say like, oh, well, we didn't really want to do this. It doesn't really jive with all past actions. They've been trying to blackmail the public on this for a while.
Sam, where are we at with the infilling? I know that there was some discussion, Transport Canada giving the green light, but they were still, last I checked anyway, they were still waiting on approval from the feds.
So Transport Canada rescinded their approval and then reissued it. But Fisheries and Oceans hasn't.
Right.
So Fisheries and Oceans has never given an approval, and the Save Dartmouth Cove group and a bunch of volunteers have done some very fabulous work going into Dartmouth Cove with divers and actually documenting what's under the water, and it's not a toxic sludge waste dump the way it is being portrayed in some quarters. You got a bunch of unique marine life down there. They've even found eelgrass, like an eelgrass meadow, which is one of those species at risk in our part of the world. So, it'll be interesting to see what DFO does, because they've probably got the most detailed submission in terms of citizen science coming at them that they've probably ever had.
Sam, last question. What is your message to your constituents that use that trail every day that may be now afraid to use it?
Well, I mean, I walked on the trail yesterday myself, even though I'd received a letter. I mean, I think, we all have our property rights, and if Atlantic Road wants to restrict people from accessing their property, they're free to do so. They're free to put up signs, so no one should interfere with their sign. And but the Harbor Trail itself, so that 4 meters of asphalt all along that property, HRM's position remains that is public and that is open. And so we see where things go from there. I mean, I personally wouldn't be afraid of using the Harbor Trail, given that it's in dispute and it will be ultimately decided in the courts. But if with Atlantic Road posting the signage, I mean, everyone should respect their property and stay off the shore part of their section of the land down there.
Sam, appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
District 5 Councilor Sam Austin on the ongoing saga that is Dartmouth Cove. Time for us to take a break. When we come back, new data earlier this week, showing that the popularity of the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, took a significant hit over the last few months. A conversation with the group behind the poll. Senior Research Associate with Angus Reid, John Rowe, will be your guest. We're back after the break. Much of a surprise to many of you out there listening today that the Premier's popularity was likely to take a hit in the wake of the budget that was released earlier on, a couple of weeks ago now, during that blizzard. And some of the cuts and some of the reductions in funding that were announced, and some of the reaction that we saw in different communities. And of course, the Premier heard it. The government certainly saw it in the form of protests out in front of the provincial legislature, and eventually the Premier changing his tact, changing his course on some of those cuts and apologizing for them. That has had an impact on Mr. Houston's popularity. And Angus Reid does a quarterly look at the popularity of premiers across the country, and that one came in showing the Premier dropping about 11 points. Very pleased to welcome into the show today to tell us a little bit more about this Senior Research Associate with Angus Reid Institute. That's John Rowe. John, how are you?
I'm doing good, Dan. How are you?
I am well. Tell me a little bit about the methodology of this. How do you go about getting these numbers?
Yeah, so we do what we call a national report every quarter, which looks at a bunch of different issues, including provincial government performance, some federal politics, those kind of things. And the survey is about 4,000 people across the country, including more than 250 people in Nova Scotia, 360 this time around. And then one of the issues we like to look at is Premier approval. And that kind of gives a good barometer of how people across the country are feeling about their provincial governments, because oftentimes a lot of the assessments of how they're feeling about their government, I think, falls on the Premier in a lot of ways. So this is just a really good cross-country look at different issues across the country. When was this survey in the market, John? When did you conduct the survey? So this was in field March 11th to the 17th. So this would have captured both, I think, the reaction to the budget and even the backtracking that Tim Houston and his government had to do to kind of respond to those protests about those cuts. Right. And the Premier obviously had enjoyed some popularity, a wave of popularity since the last election. And to be honest, before that, sitting usually in the top 3, top 4 of premiers nationwide, but that's just not the case now. Yeah, typically Tim Houston was one of the few premiers that we saw would have majority approval, so approval over 50% of people in the province, including since the last election in 2024. He was in that 55, 59% range. Now he's down to 39%, which is the lowest we've recorded him since he's come into office, and now kind of closer to the bottom of the pack among premiers than the top. So it is a pretty big drop, and probably the most notable drop that we've seen among premiers this quarter. Have we seen this big a swing in popularity in premiers before? I mean, 11 points is a long way. Yeah, we've seen swings like that before. Scott Moe had a drop of like 18 points, and we've had some responses. I think usually, like in these kind of situations where something big has come out that the government has done, there's been kind of a backlash to it, and then you do see that represented in the premier approval. So, though it is notable, we have seen drops like this before.
Bob Canoe continues to enjoy popularity. He's at, 61%. What is he doing right?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because he's been up in the 3 and 5 range since he took office. Most popular premier in the country, typically on these rankings, and I think it is interesting because it's his government has, I think, facing a lot of the same issues governments across the country are facing. So issues around healthcare, issues around the budget, and things like that. But I think he's personally popular. I think people like what he says when he kind of goes out and talks to the media. His government has also kind of put in a few. Maybe more populist measures to help with the cost of living. I think maybe it's helped him as well, too. When he first came in, his government put in a permanent or a temporary gas tax holiday, and then turned that into a permanent reduction in fuel taxes. And then this year they they fixed the prices of the cartons of milk for the whole year. So I think some of those maybe populist type measures are helping him along as well.
John, you mentioned that the survey was in the market between the 11th and the 17th and may have caught some of the reaction to the Premier of Nova Scotia's apology and his reversing course on some of those cuts. Do you think that will flow into the next quarter and that may help to raise the popularity of the Premier at least a little bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think it's really hard to tell how this kind of flows into the next set of data. Typically, when we see these sorts of drops, it's really hard for premiers to recover from it. We usually see approval head in one direction, where it's over time people have more things to disagree with the premier, more things to disagree with the provincial government, more policies that they don't like that the premier has put in place. So they tend to trend more negatively. So I would hazard and say that maybe this is probably closer to where he'll be. Maybe he'll get a little bit of a bounce back after he kind of recovers some good faith, depending on what happens with the rest of the fallout of the budget. But usually it kind of tends to trend in only one direction.
John, when's the next survey go to the market?
So we do these quarterly, so March, June, September, and December typically.
So we'll get another look in the summer.
Yes, yeah.
John, appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
John Rowe is a senior research associate with the Angus Reid Institute. Tim Houston's numbers sliding by 11 points, and is to his lowest point in his premiership, I would suggest, and that purely, well, maybe not purely, but most likely the result of the budget and some of the measures that were included in that budget. Will we see a rebound? I guess only time will tell. Speaking of politics, and we've got a couple of minutes here before the news at the bottom of the hour, Pierre Poilievre appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience yesterday. He taped it, I think, the day before. And many people, including myself, think that he did a pretty good job. That wasn't the Pierre Poilievre I remember from the election campaign 18 months before. He was very diplomatic. He was somewhat stoic. He took a pretty significant shot at the United States administration, telling them to, I won't use the words here on the radio, but telling them to stop their nonsense surrounding the 51st state, that Canada's not for sale. And Mr. Poilievre trying to work with different American groups and organizations. You know, he was in Michigan talking to auto workers. He had an audience with the governor of Texas as part of his March break vacation, and was a couple of big speeches in New York City. So Mr. Poilievre, and then, of course, we saw him travel across the pond just before the March break and spent some time in Europe, drumming up business, I guess, for Canada and strengthening ties, as he says. So getting an audience on Joe Rogan, which I do believe, if it's not it's one of the most popular podcasts around the world. So Pierre Poilievre trying to maybe increase his reach, get to more people. It's interesting, though. My criticism of Mr. Poilievre has always been that he is reluctant to do a lot of media here in Canada, at least one-on-one media here in Canada. And it's interesting that he has taken the approach to go to the United States to try and reach voters in Canada. Maybe we've reached out to Mr. Poilievre several times. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe he has a change of tune. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I thought he did a pretty good job, and I think that you can see a definitive shift in approach to Mr. Poilievre since the last election, since losing his seat in Ottawa, the Ottawa area, and then winning that re-election in Alberta, and now facing down what could be a majority Liberal government once we get through those by-elections in the next few weeks here. We're going to stop and take another break here on the program. We're going to continue our focus on U.S. politics at the other side of this stop down. We haven't talked to our friend from the University of Maine at the Department of Political Science. That's Mark Brewer, for some time. Of course, since the last time we chatted, I think the world has changed a bunch. I'm interested to hear what the perspective is on the other side of the border to all of the war in Iran and the fallout and the rise in energy prices. A conversation with Professor Mark Brewer from the University of Maine right after the news.
Axe.
Welcome back. As I mentioned before the break, it has been a minute or two since we've had a discussion with our next guest, and in that minute or two, a lot of things have changed. We've seen the United States go in and pick off the leader of a sovereign nation and effect change there and do it in quite an efficient manner. And then, of course, since the 28th of February, we've seen the United States also begin a major combat in Iran, and that continues to rage on today. And that, of course, having an impact on of the economies of the world when it comes to energy prices. I'm always pleased to welcome our next guest to the program, professor and chair of the Department of Political Science over there at the University of Maine. That's Mark Brewer. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Busy times, eh?
Yeah, no, there's always a lot going on, that's for sure.
What has reaction been around your neck of the woods to this ongoing war in Iran?
Well, I mean, I think, if you look in Maine specifically, but also the United States more broadly, the actions in Iran are relatively unpopular, right? A majority of Americans are opposed to what the president is kind of directing in Iran. Republicans are more supportive, of course, than Democrats and independents. But, when you look at the population as a whole, opinions are not super thrilled with what the president's doing. And as the operation drags on and as energy prices, in particular gasoline prices, continue to go nowhere but up, the actions are becoming more unpopular as days go by.
Not reading too much into this, but watching, and I'm sure you do too, the briefings that we get every couple days or 3 times a week or less from the Pentagon, and we have the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who spent yesterday about 8 or 9 minutes of his briefing lambasting the media for their coverage. Is that something that you would expect from the Trump administration?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be par for the course for both Hegseth in particular and the Trump administration more broadly. They're very combative with what they see as a biased mainstream media universe. I also think, though, in this particular instance, that it's Hegseth's combativeness yesterday is really indicative of how I think Americans are reacting negatively to what the U.S. is doing in Iran, how there's at least some perception that the U.S., is kind of doing the bidding or taking the orders of Israel on this. And I think Hegseth feels compelled to push back on that narrative. And he's doing so by blaming the media, saying that this is a story the media is telling you. It's not true. The media is telling you a story of things aren't going very well, or things are going great. We wouldn't expect this to be over yet. So he's really pushing back on that. Just partly because that's what they do, but also partly, I think, because I'm sure internally they are well aware that American public opinion is not terribly supportive of this right now, and they want to place some blame elsewhere.
You mentioned Republicans are more receptive to the military operation in Iran. That all being said, Mark, we know that the president ran on a campaign platform of no more forever wars and not getting involved in international messes like that where he is now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he's lost, he's got some pushback from some corners of the MAGA universe who generally tend to be very supportive of Trump. What's going to be interesting to watch is how much that spreads, because at least as of right now, the vast majority of Republicans are staying with the president on this. Even though some of them are indicating, well, this is, the kind of thing he said that he wasn't going to do. But we're sticking with him for now. The for now part, I think, is important, because the longer this goes on, the more pressure that's going to put on his MAGA coalition, and it'll be interesting to see if that forces those cracks to widen. I mean, he's been able to pretty much do whatever he's wanted to do for, both of his terms in office and really the 4 years in between, without losing any of that core support. And so far, Iran hasn't done it either, with a few high-profile exceptions. The longer this goes, the bigger question that becomes.
Do you think this is going to impact the midterm elections at all?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that it does. I think it could stop in a week and it's still going to impact the midterm elections, right? But if it continues, throughout the rest of the spring and into summer, and we get into summer driving season and Americans are paying $4 a gallon for gas or more as they attempt to go on vacation, if this maybe pushes the economy into a recession, which some are saying that it could, that impact could grow exponentially, depending on A, how long this lasts, and then maybe even more important, B, what it does to the overall economy.
President Trump earlier this week musing about perhaps taking over or getting Cuba. Would that be popular in other countries?
I don't think so. There'd certainly be some pockets of the Republican Party that would be very popular in, right? I mean, if you look at Cuban exiles in Florida, they've long wanted something like this, and including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. This is high on his list. So yes, there would be pockets that would be ecstatic over it. But I think the overall reaction would be much more of a, I don't really think this is something we should be doing kind of thing, particularly for those Americans who adopt a more isolationist bent, right? Which is what Trump sold them in all 3 times running for president.
Mark, obviously the war dominating coverage and dominating the headlines, but we're also watching with interest from the north side of the border here, the ongoing shutdown at the government and particularly the long lineups at airports with TSA officers not getting paid. This certainly isn't getting the attention it would if there was no war going on, but again, this is likely to impact the president's popularity.
You would think so, right? I mean, we've already seen, as you pointed out, some lengthening lines at security checkpoints and airports across the country. I strongly suspect that if there isn't a deal reached by the end of next week, which will cause TSA agents to miss another paycheck, that those lines will get significantly longer. And if there isn't a deal reached before next week, Congress is scheduled to adjourn, which means that unless they came back in the session or failed to adjourn in the first place, that you couldn't pass anything, things could get really ugly really quickly. And so it'll be fascinating to see this week if they can reach some kind of a deal. It is interesting. Republicans have offered some ground on Democrats' demands, although Democrats would say none of it's been terribly meaningful. But it was interesting to me to watch this week Senator Mark Wayne Mullen's confirmation hearings for becoming the new Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Everybody focused on the feistiness between him and Rand Paul, which was entertaining. But Mullen did seem to offer up some compromise on one key area of Democratic concern, which is the judicial warrants. And if that ends up coming through in a formal offer, that might be enough to move the needle here.
Which side of the floor are Americans on this issue? Are they blaming the Democrats, or are they blaming the Republicans, or are they blaming everybody?
That's a good question. I actually haven't seen any up-to-date polling on that. I'm sure it's out there. I just haven't seen it. Generally speaking, shutdowns tend to be placed at the feet of the majority party. and the party in control, which on all sides would be Republicans in this particular case, although I have not seen any polling on this.
Mark, last question. Maine obviously is a tourism destination like we are north of the border here, and looking forward to seeing some of your compatriots come across the border this summer. That being said, with energy prices the way they are and all of this business at airports, any concern around tourism in Maine this summer?
Well, there's always concern around tourism in Maine, right? It's one of the biggest industries in the state. Vacation land is vacation land for a reason. And in particular, Mainers have been very pained by the tensions with Canada, right? They see it as unnecessary and really, there's a lot of people that have family ties across the border. Right. It's been a problem. And so Mainers are very much concerned about this. And I think that's putting it mildly.
Mark, appreciate your time. Have a good weekend, sir.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
That is Mark Brewer, professor and chair of the Department of Political Science down there at the University of Maine. When we come back, it came up during one of the call-ins. I would think it was Monday. No, it was during Science Files on Tuesday with Dr. Rob Thacker about the Burn Safe map. It's back. That means that we're into fire season. And what kind of fire season can we expect? We've seen a quick melt. We've seen some rain. What does that mean for the potential for forest fires? A conversation. We've had many with our next guest last year during fire season. This is the first one of the year. The manager of forest protection with the Department of Natural Resources, Scott Tingley. After the break. Looking at the weekend forecast, and it looks wet. It looks like we're going to see some snow, rain mix, and of course, so we've had some rain this week, and we've had a snow melt, but it went pretty quickly. All of these things are factors, folks, when it comes to what we can expect or the potential of the wildfires or wildfire risk here in Nova Scotia as we approach that season where we traditionally see these fires start to spring up. I know that the folks over there at the Department of Natural Resources are getting ready and have their crews in place and are prepared to get out there and help keep those fires at bay. And I'm always happy to welcome our next guest to the program, Manager of Forest Protection. That's Scott Tingley. Scott, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's I guess the first and the broad question is what are you expecting this year? Was the spring that we're having so far a help or a hindrance?
The snow that we had was certainly helpful. The longer it sticks around, it mitigates the risk. But like you mentioned in the opening there, it disappeared pretty quick here with the rain and some of the milder weather. So we certainly welcome some of the cooler weather and some of the precipitation that's coming. But we're back into wildfire risk season starting March 15th.
So the 15th of March, the wildfire season, Scott, begins. Tell us a little bit about what that means and what the Burn Safe map is designed to do.
You bet. So the wildfire risk, the regulated season started March 15th, and it goes till October 15th. On a daily basis, we post a map on our website, as well as there's a phone number that people can call every day at 2 p.m. and it will advise, whether conditions are safe to have a fire at 2 p.m., 7 p.m., or not at all. And then, of course, every day between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., there's no domestic burning permitted all season. So,
why is that, Scott? Why don't we allow burning between 8 and 2?
8 and 2, we base the daily burn restrictions based on the most current weather, the fire weather that we get at 1 p.m. So we get that weather, we process it, set the daily restrictions. So the risk is people starting a fire in that morning period. They don't have the most updated weather for that day. And the risk is if they start something in the morning, the risk could be increased in the afternoon and fires could get away on people. So,
how do you determine, there's three colors, right? There's red, there's yellow, and there's green. How do you determine if it's a 2 o'clock burn or a 7 o'clock burn? Is there a number of factors? Is there a formula you work? Do you have boots on the ground in the woods?
kind of a combination of all those, but primarily, we have weather stations all across the province, or remote automated weather stations. We're collecting weather data on an hourly basis, and our system, like I said, is based on 1 p.m. calculation for that day. And so we collect all that data, process it, assess the risk, and assign the restriction appropriately. So, and always we're erring on the side of caution, obviously. So. Right.
So 2:00 is the magic time to check the map, and then you'll know if it's 2:00 or 7:00 or not at all. Is there a significant difference in conditions that lead us to have that separation, that 2:00 to 7:00 separation? Is it wind? Is that the big factor?
It varies kind of time of year. So I mean, this time of year, as we're heading into spring, what we find is wind and what we call our finer fuels, the grass and things like that. They tend to dry out quicker, and so those are more influenced this time of year. What we saw last year, in August, later summer, extended kind of periods of drought, where we've gone for days or many weeks without rain. Those conditions are a little different, and fires tend to be more stubborn and dig in to the ground a bit more. And so we're looking at different kind of factors at that time of year. But this time of year, it's kind of those quick igniting, quick spreading fires in the spring that we see. And this is the time of year we tend to see in Nova Scotia most of our fires. Right.
Usually early spring before the leaves get on the trees.
That's right. Yeah.
Scott, how are you set up for resources this year? We know that you guys were really busy last year. I mean, we all saw the big fires in the valley. We saw the fire here in HRM. Are you set up for resources this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're well positioned as we are every year. We've gone through our normal cycle of preparation and seasonal hiring, and we've been investing in new equipment. People would be hearing, recent reports. We're looking at adding fixed-wing water bombers to complement our current helicopter water bomber fleet. So the province is certainly investing and enhancing our capabilities, but we're on our regular kind of prep cycle of being prepared, training crews. Equipment has been looked after through the winter and maintained and things like that. So we're ready when the call comes.
Those fixed-wing bombers certainly are game changers, right? I was at Susie's Lake when the bombers came from New Brunswick, and how that changed that fire so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've always had access to them, through our mutual aid agreements. But having them positioned in the province, is certainly, like I said, an enhancement to our current complement, and also our very close working relationship with the volunteer municipal fire departments. We're on our regular prep cycle, and like I said, we're all set, ready for when the calls come. So,
do we have the aircraft now, the fixed wing, or are they on the way? And do they come with crews and all of that stuff?
They are on their way. So the contract that we're going to have is set to start on May 1st,
right,
and run through September. And so those aircraft will be in position here in the province. As well as, we're in the process of hiring 3 positions to support that contract as well. So,
well, hopefully we won't have to use them, Scott. That would be the best case scenario, correct?
Absolutely. We always hope for the best and plan for the worst. So, like I said, we're ready when the call comes, but we're like everyone. We just kind of hope for, we'd love it to just be kind of a regular cycle of rain and mix of rain and sun through the summer, but we'll see what we get.
And of course, you always ask for help from everybody that is either living near the woods or recreating in the woods to be fire safe.
Absolutely, yeah. That's we all have a responsibility. The department is ready to fight the fires, with the municipal and volunteer crews, but there's lots of things people can do, in around their homes, in the communities, at the municipal level, just following things like the FireSmart principles, they can go to firesmart.ca. Lots of great information. Visit your local DNR office. We can provide additional information and resources as well. And just simple things like, following the daily burn restrictions, that's a key component. Maintenance around their property, keeping grass trimmed and combustibles, reducing the risk in and around the home, make a big difference.
Scott, hope it's a quiet season.
Thank you very much, and we do too.
Have a good one. That is Scott Tingley. He is the manager of forest protection with the DNR, as we are now officially in wildfire season, folks. You got to check that map. No burning between 8 and 2 o'clock every day. The map will show you if it's okay to start burning at 2, if it's green. If it's yellow, you can start burning after 7. And, of course, if it's red, then no burning at all. We're going to stop, get an update on the news. When we come back, it's time for the Friday free-for-all. This is the opportunity, our opportunity for you to lead the conversation. This is your hour. You can join the show, talk about whatever it is on your mind. If it's something that we've discussed earlier in the week or maybe weeks ago that you want to bring back to the discussion, if it's something that we haven't talked about and you want to raise some awareness on it, by all means do so. Lots of things to talk about: the war in Iran, Poilievre's appearance on Joe Rogan, Mark Carney traveling on vacation, keeping an eye on things. We are being told Dartmouth Cove locally is heating up again. No trespassing signs have been posted on the recreation trail as the latest salvo is fired in that ongoing dispute, or maybe something else. Lines are now open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Friday free-for-all after the news.
Facts.
It's time for the Friday free-for-all, your opportunity to lead the discussion, folks. This hour is for you. We've been doing this for the last couple of weeks, and it's been quite popular, and we'll continue to do this on Fridays as long as you continue to participate. I'll try to keep my comments to a minimum so we can get to as many people as we can. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll start things off with Tim. Tim, how are you?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Very good. Well, a couple things. One, it'd be nice if our leaders, one being the Prime Minister and the second being the leader of the official opposition, would spend more time in Canada solving the issues and concerns of Canadians. In regards to Poilievre, it was interesting. I'm not sure it'll matter 3 years from now when if or when the election is held, what the Joe Rogan experience did for him. I thought it was somewhat telling that while he was on the show, he had a Canadian flag on his lapel, but outside the wherever he did the interview, he took his Canadian pin off. I'm not sure if he's Canadian just on air or if off air, but nonetheless, don't really care, and time will tell.
Tim, I appreciate it, sir.
Cheers.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dave wants to talk about Joe Rogan as well. Dave, how are you?
Yeah, he's one of my faves, Joe Rogan. He's had quite a starting off in acting and ending up in Hollywood and made his way from there. And look at him now. He's under Spotify, who paid him a huge sum of money for his most popular podcast, I think, in the world, if not one of the.
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoy it because of his variety of guests, and one of them was Pierre Poilievre last night or yesterday. And, that was a 2-hour-plus interview. Many of them are. And to have conversation flow can be challenging at times, but there didn't seem to be any challenge. They were flowing. And a lot of it was around martial arts, which Pierre Poilievre knows a lot of. Talked about our icon, Georges St. Pierre, GSP, if people watch UFC. Great fighter. And they really hit it off, I thought. And I don't know, your last caller, I saw a Canadian pin on Pierre Poilievre's lapel on his suit. He looked good. They really connected. Now, we know Pierre Poilievre, you're going to hear people that say they like him or not. Fine.
But with Joe Rogan, his little bit of his history, because I think some are not aware, but he moved out of California because California was just turning into what he said a dreadful place. He moved into Texas, took his industry into Austin, Texas, and he says Austin is actually kind of a Democratic city in a Republican state, and he says it's just perfect for him because he really loves California, but the nuttiness of California and the taxation and what have you drove him out of there, like many businesses in California, sadly. So he also has a comedy club there. So he's a very industrious man. He's got a family of 3 girls, I think, 1 adopted, and he loves his dogs. He loves his hunting. And he's great success, man. I'm telling you, he has some very good guests on there. So getting back to the interview, I thought Pierre showed a lot of class. You know, he explained the Canadian politics to Joe on how it operates, which is different than the United States. He showed a lot of class by not ripping into our current leader, which he could have, but he said, you know, this is not my home territory. We are the opposition, yes, but we work together, and that's part of the Canadian. You know, you need some critics from the opposite side, and that's what Poilievre does, right? So, you know, I thought that was really good. I thought I think Joe tried to pry some of it out of him on our leader. I think Rogan will come to Canada, but he says he's just dismayed on how things are going up here, or at least
he said he wouldn't come across the border, right? He said with the UFC came to Montreal, he wouldn't go.
I think he's been to Montreal actually, but not in recent times.
Not recently. Yes.
Yeah, I think Pierre will try to Poilievre will try to get him up here, and I think he will. I think they really did hit it off. How that'll do, I don't know how many viewers.
Dave, let me ask you this question: If you know, and I said it earlier, I thought that Pierre Poilievre did a great job. I thought he was a politician.
I agree.
I thought he was he had this wasn't the Poilievre that we saw 18 months ago, right? This wasn't the 3-word catchphrase. This wasn't the attack dog. But why won't he do the same in Canada?
I think this is what he's going to frame himself as, and I think lately
why won't he do interviews like that in Canada? I'm asking. Because he is well known for not doing media here.
Well, the one interview he had that he didn't expect to be so successful that went viral was the one eating his apple, right, in Penticton. I think it was up in the interior of BC, which he boasted about, by the way. Told people go up into the interior of BC. It is beautiful.
My question is that he has gone south of the border to the most popular podcast in the world to reach Canadians, but won't do Canadian media. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I don't think our Prime Minister is doing a lot of Canadian media either. He seems to be abroad a lot as well. He's dodging a lot of. Maybe that's the way of our politicians these days, right? Maybe. Stay out of the
country.
Stay out of the country. Ditch and run, and And again, I think it went well. I think the interview. I enjoyed it. I thought it might have been a little bit dull, maybe, because they did talk about a lot of martial arts and stuff like that. But I think they did hit it off, and I think Joe Rogan's going to come to Canada. He loves Canadians. And, I think he did well.
All right, Dave, appreciate it. Good weekend.
Cheers. You too.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. This is the Friday Free-for-All, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. We say hello now to Joe. Oh, my goodness, Joe, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Your phone is awful.
My phone is awful? I'll turn it up. I had to turn it down. Is that any better?
No, I'll tell you what, Joe, give us a call right back, and Blake will put you right through, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, James.
Good morning. Hi.
What's on your mind?
Calling about one of your and my favorite topics, everybody's favorite topic, Nova Scotia Power.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this week, and just in case other listeners may not have noticed, the regulatory authority, which is called the Nova Scotia Energy Board, is holding a public hearing into what they refer to as the cyber incident. In other words, when the meters all went crazy. And it's happening July 27th at their headquarters down on the waterfront, the Summit building.
Yep.
And the public can attend. The public can attend via Zoom or in person, and any member of the public can make a presentation. You just have to sign up by July 8th if you want to present on the 27th. So we're going to get the full story, one would hope. If this is an independent, obviously, investigation, it's not just Nova Scotia Power spinning its messages. I'll be there.
And so will I. Appreciate it, my friend.
Just go to their website, Nova Scotia Energy Board.
Thanks, James. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the phone number. This is the Friday Free for All. Your chance to lead the discussion, and we're going to continue right after this break. All right, welcome back. This is the Friday Free for All. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's see if Joe's there. Joe, how are you?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Sounds much better. Thanks for calling back.
Okay. Dartmouth Cove.
Yeah.
The councillor is trying to frame this as an environmental issue. You know, this is a pristine area. That's simply not true. That's a red herring. Now, back a little history. Back before they put the wastewater treatment plant down there, that Dartmouth Cove was one of the most polluted areas in the whole harbor. The fecal coliform was off the scale. You couldn't even touch it with your unbroken skin. It was dangerous, right? And so now it's better. There's a wastewater treatment plant there. But you got to remember, this is a working harbor, and the whole harbor is still designated as a working harbor. And there is a sewage treatment plant in the area, which has an outfall. And it's not, it is treated, but it's not drinkable, and it's going in there. So saying this is a wonderful environment, or rather like that, they found some eelgrass. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's not a place that you want to go swimming. It's just it's silly to try to make it out like that. There's other issues involved there, and it's not the environment. In fact, they want to use it for putting pyritic slate in there, and that's a help to the environment. Pyritic slate, every time you dig around here, you get pyritic slate. And it has to be put, it can't be exposed to water and air, or it becomes acidic. So they bury it at low mean tide, and so the water doesn't hurt it, but the air can't get to it. And if you don't do that, you've got to truck it to Montreal. It's actually an environmental help. That's what they're trying to do there. So I think this councillor is just trying to make some brownie points, and he's the bike lane councillor, isn't it? That thinks the whole city budget should be dictated by bike lanes.
He certainly is an advocate for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubts about that. And there's some good to it, but it's going a little overboard. That's my comment.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Friday Free for All. You can bring whatever it is on your mind to the discussion, to the mailbag very quickly before we go back to the phones. This one comes to us from Richard. It reads, anyone with critical thinking knows that Joe Rogan and his Rogan sphere are generally MAGA right, toxic masculinity. He spews misinformation on a regular basis, from aliens to COVID and worse. He lets grifters on his show and doesn't challenge their lies. This is a perfect place for Pierre Poilievre, closer to MAGA like we already knew, and vehemently avoided during the election. That comes to us from Richard. Mark writes the opposite. All the elbows up liberals will find any reason to hate on Poilievre, so I don't listen too much to the haters. All politicians of all stripes want to get publicity any way they can get it. And that one comes to us from Mark. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Sam.
Afternoon, Dan. Well, good morning still, I guess.
It's still morning.
Yes, it is. I did call about Mr. Poilievre, but I just wanted to make a quick comment on the last caller who's claiming that infilling bodies of water with pyritic slate is good for the environment. I mean, I think, like, I don't know where he's getting that information from, but it's false. It's not really a well-studied subject, dumping pyritic slate into, salt water, but it likely does, create. It leaches chemicals and minerals.
Well, we see it all
into
over
the water,
all over the basin, though, right? I mean, most of Bedford's basin is that's all been reclaimed with this stuff.
Yeah, these are. I mean, I'm not saying that Nova Scotia's developments. I would not argue that they've been following best environmental practices. Just because we see pyritic slate all over the place doesn't mean it's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
And also, no one is saying that it's a pristine environment. I mean, it's in the middle of a working harbor. It's about protecting public access to the cove, and I mean, there is ecosystem on the bottom. I mean, infilling is it's not good for anything, environmentally speaking. But the Polyev interview with Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, he was pleasant on the podcast. Thought he did an okay job, but to be honest, I mean, me personally, I'm not really interested in politicians who have to undergo several makeovers just to make themselves palatable to the general public. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we've got, the original Polyev was kind of like a nerdy guy, Milton Friedman, libertarian, Ayn Rand, kind of a high school kid who got into his libertarian phase and never left. And then we got the Axe the Tax Polyev, who, had been hitting the gym and got some LASIK, picked up on the slogans, was, sort of the attack dog Polyev.
Yep.
And now he's undergoing this other transformation, being, like you said earlier, very diplomatic and respectful, which is nice to see, and I'm glad he's changed his tune, but I think that Canadians deserve better than that. I think we deserve a sincere politician, someone who, is consistent, sincere, and truly believes what they stand for, so they don't need to, undergo too much public relations training just to be, considered someone that they would even consider voting for. Like, someone who comes to mind, you could say what you want about his personal politics, but everybody knows Bernie Sanders, of course, and everybody knows that he's been very consistent since, he was a young man, and now he's a dinosaur. And he's saying the exact same things he's been saying his entire career. Very consistent, and it's very easy to see that he has a genuine concern for the American working class. There's not a lot of politicians out there like that. I mean, that I can think of. But I think rather than accepting these politicians who are good at changing their personalities, I think we should be, getting rid of them. And I just think we need more real people in politics, more people to step up and stand up for what's right.
Sam, I appreciate the call. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Some breaking news to pass along to you folks here. I just came across my desk. Chuck Norris, the martial artist, actor, author, pulp culture legend, whose name became synonymous with toughness, right, has passed away. He passed away yesterday, according to a statement from his family. Chuck Norris was 86. No matter how tough Chuck Norris was, he couldn't outlast time, I guess. 86 years old. Boy, just think back to all the Walker, Texas Rangers and all the movies and the Missing in Action movie series and so on and so forth. But, that's a sad one. 86 years old. Chuck Norris, action superstar, martial arts icon, has passed away. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. We had a conversation earlier in the show today with the DNR as we're getting ready for wildfire season. Well, wildfire season is, in fact, upon us. It started on the 15th of March. We heard that the province of Nova Scotia was in the budget but didn't get talked about a lot. Has acquired 2 fixed-wing water bomber type aircraft that are going to be on station in Nova Scotia on May 1st. And I know many of you have been calling for that, and we knew that the line to get some of these water bomber aircraft was very long. So I do believe that this is a contract. They're leasing these aircraft from somewhere, but they'll be on station in May. And also, I said, I didn't just say. Our guest said that spring is one of the busiest times. It gets very dry in the woods, despite the fact that we've had a melt and we've had rainfall and such. But and I said before the the leaves get on the trees. And then, of course, some of you out there who know that I'm a true blue, live and die Toronto Maple Leaf fan said, well, it's like trying to wait for the Maple Leafs to make the playoffs. Everybody's got an opinion. What is the very and honest-to-goodness truth about the Toronto Maple Leafs this year is we know that they're not going to make it out of the first round of the playoffs. They're just not going to make the playoffs. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Folks, this is the Friday Free for All. This is your hour. You can talk about whatever it is on your mind. You get to lead the conversation. I try to keep my comments to a minimum, as you may have noticed. But the lines right now, folks, are wide open. We're going to continue to do this as long as you participate, as long as we get calls. And it's been pretty popular here as of late. It appears that maybe the March break Friday is a little bit lighter, but that's a good opportunity for you to dial the numbers and join the show. The lines are open, and you'll get on very quickly that way. Again, the telephone number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We will return after the news.
Axe.
Very quickly, before we go back to the phone lines, I was just watching... have several televisions in the control room here, and one of them was on CNN. They had a story on about debt and recession in the United States, and they flashed a graphic based off of 2024 numbers. That was before this latest hit in inflation that we're going to see. Right, we've talked about that several times over the last week, and the number showed that 40% of Americans. Now, this is a U.S. study, of course, but 40% of Americans say they cannot pay off their credit card balance month to month. So 4 out of every 10 people are running debt, credit card debt. I'm interested if that would translate north of the border. So I certainly don't know if I could, for 12 months of the year, pay off my credit card balance at the end of the month. And I know many of you can. It would be an interesting study, and that might lead to the multi-billion dollars that the banks are making each quarter, right? And to the state of the economy here in Nova Scotia. But anyway, enough of me talking. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Here, Paulette.
Mm-hmm. Paulette.
Lost his seat in the last election.
He did.
And 3 members of his party have crossed the floor to the Liberals. Sounds like poor leadership.
Some suggest it is.
Yes, I think it is.
Okay. Your point?
My point is he wouldn't make a very good prime minister because if he can't win his own seat, he can't even control his own party.
Certainly haven't seen this kind of defection from a party in several terms. Yes, that's right. And if you got your leader his members looks like they're disagreeing with his policies, then probably more are going to defect to the Liberals. It's a very real possibility, Rob. Appreciate the call, sir.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Have a good weekend, too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Jamie.
How you doing today?
I am well. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to chat a little bit about the rats around the apartment buildings and stuff.
Holy smokes. I read that story this morning on the CBC website about the Highfield Park area, and rats are eating the wires in people's cars.
Yeah, that's me.
Really?
The rats attacked my car 3 times now, and cost me a lot of money to fix them.
I imagine.
And I just wanted to let the people know that, like when things like that happen, there's nothing that nobody can do about it. You can go and ask for help to try and pay for your deductible, from people, and they flat right out say that, you're responsible for parking, and that's where it goes, where it ends.
So you're able to claim this under insurance, I take it?
So I was able to claim it under my insurance, but I had to pay my deductible.
Right, yes.
And now, because the rats are still around, I park across the street. I don't park in my parking lot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So currently looking for a new apartment that may not eat my wires.
Right. So reading and seeing some of the pictures, Jaime, there's like hundreds of these things there.
Well, I'd say it's more like thousands myself, but
really?
And I truly believe that the rental company is trying to do something about it, but I just don't know how you can control something like that.
Do they get inside the apartment building?
No, well, I don't know of any that's inside the apartment building, so I'm happy about that.
No, hopefully I haven't jinxed you.
It's just that our garbage bins are probably not big enough for the two buildings that they have to do, and that they get overflowed and the garbage gets on the ground. And we have special green bins for people to separate their garbage and stuff like that in, but nobody does it and nobody closes them. So it's sort of self-inflicted pain, I believe. But I've been asked by several people, what do you want them to do about it, or what can they do about it? And I don't have the answers to that, but I just know that I'm worried now that if I stay there and it keeps happening, the insurance company for my car is probably going to kick me out of the policy.
Right. It's certainly going to, when you have claims, it'll certainly impact your insurance rates. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's how it goes. But I just wanted to mention that because I'm fired up because it cost me a lot of money.
Jaime, I appreciate it. All the best, my friend.
Yeah. Have a great day.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. If you know what we're talking about, I think there's an article on the front page of the CBC's website this morning showing that there's a rat infestation at Highfield Park Drive and over in Dartmouth, and the issue is the garbage containers and the rats are in such numbers there that they're crawling inside of people's engine compartments of their vehicles and are chewing the plastic wires off and causing damage to people's cars. I mean, you don't expect to get up in the morning and hop in your car and A, it not work, or B, go a couple of blocks down the road and it just stop working on you. And then, as Jaime explained, the expense that's associated with it, it's wild. There's some pictures of there. Anyway, we know that rats and mice are a problem. We've talked about it here on the show. We've had these pest control specialists come into the program and explain that. But when it comes to something at that scale, and Jaime said that the property managers are trying, but what do you do? What do you do? Anyway, back to the phones. Hello, Lynn.
Yes, hello. I would like to speak on two subjects, please.
Sure.
Okay. Well, to begin with, I will start. I worked in Iran, and I tell you, there's something wrong that's going on there right now. Myself and a friend, Nuala Spain, who is now living in Germany, we couldn't. Afghanistan. The woman there told us to get out of there, and so we went through all these countries.
Right.
We decided to stop in Saudi Arabia, but it was Aramco. Aramco is an American oil company. And this was, after we finished our nurses training, midwifery training and that. But we had to go back to get 25 more deliveries because the Shah, he was sent out of Iran at the time.
In 1979.
The Ayatollah took over. So it was good, but at that time, we couldn't go to any of these other countries, and we wanted to go to Israel. And at that time, this was the second time we had been to Israel, and we weren't allowed in, even though, we could show our passport, and they wouldn't allow us in. So that's why we went to Iran. And it was just horrible. Not in Iran. They were very good to us. And, we had to go in the back of a truck, but who cares? They were very good to us. And when we finished there, okay. When we were there as nurses, we didn't want anything happening to the children. So what we did was we gave colored prints of the infant's footprints to the mother, and it also gave a part of the notes, the chart, to the mother as well, so that they would know that was their child.
Okay.
And but and when we had to go back to, we went back to Forth Park Maternity Hospital in Fife. We only got 25 deliveries at the Queen Mother's in Glasgow in Scotland because the people the men were taken back when the Ayatollah took over, and the Shah and his family went to the U.S. To live there. We were able to go there to work, and it was great because when I left, we were given an apartment in Glasgow in Scotland. That's where I trained at the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow in Scotland, and the Queen Mother's. But that's where we only got the 25 deliveries, and I felt we needed much more, and an intensive care course.
Okay.
But I know I'm taking up too much of your time.
Yeah.
And
to your point. Get to your point, Lynn.
Okay. No, they were very good to us in Iran, and the woman who told us to get out of Afghanistan and go on. In Iran, when we left there, they gave us enough money. It was an apartment in Glasgow in Scotland.
Appreciate it, Lynn. We're out of time. We're up against the break. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll return after these messages. All right, welcome back. Friday Free For All continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Shelley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I can hardly hear you.
Oh, is that better?
A little bit.
Just a follow-up to the gentleman who just spoke to you about rats in the apartment.
Sure.
Well, we live in an apartment. We've been here for 8 years now. And when we moved in, it was owned by a different landlord. It was a gentleman here in the city owned it. And it was immaculate. It was very well maintained, kept up. And the thing, how it worked was that, I think, I'm not sure, husband or wife, one worked, the other stayed at the building. So you always had somebody on site who took care of the place. Well, it was taken over by a gentleman from India. He has several apartments in the city. And since then, it's just slowly just run down like you wouldn't believe. And the main reason is the care. That's the cleanliness and the care. There's no care taken to garbage. They don't. The first thing he did was he canceled the city garbage, so he has his own company that collects the garbage. There is zero separation. They don't honor any compost or anything like that. They just put everything into one bin. The guy who he has collected, he comes in, he takes everything that we go through the trouble of putting in compost, he dumps everything in with the garbage, so there's no separation there. If the city knew this, I'm not sure they would agree with it. That's the issue with the garbage. And the thing with the pest control, he canceled all pest control. He said, no, we don't need that. So he supposedly have his own pest control, which is just not working. The issue is that the immigrants that we have living here, I shouldn't say it, but they're not clean. They go out on their balconies and their yards, and when you have dinner, you clean your plates. Well, they just clean their plates outside, which is causing pest control. And we have ants and cockroaches like you wouldn't believe, and mice and rats. And this is overflowing with mice and rats, and especially cockroaches. They're terrible, terrible cockroaches.
Sounds like it's time to move, Shelley.
It is time to move. But the thing is, this was a lovely building, and the people we have running it right now. So we've gone to the landlord and said to him, look, you know, we have cockroaches, there's mice, and you know what his response is? Live with it.
Wow.
That's his response. Live with it. I guess that's the...
Sorry to hear that, Shelley. Appreciate the call. Hope you have a good weekend.
Okay.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. Let's say hello to Chris. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, just a couple of very quick comments. One, everybody's always beaten up on the states. Everything they do is not great. But I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't for the United States, Europe would be speaking German right now. And every time there's a disaster around the world,
Chris, and I understand that, and I agree
some
with
of the
you.
first people to get in there are Americans.
And I agree with you to a point, but how long do we keep relying on that, right? We saw Britain kind of throw us to the wolves when Trump started throwing tariffs at us, and despite our efforts in the Second World War to help them out when they were under siege. Like, how long do we keep rolling back? Well, you know, if it wasn't for the Americans...
No, Dan, you're missing my point.
This is 2026, my friend.
No, Dan, you're missing my point.
Okay.
Everyone beats up on the negatives, and that's fine. You can do that. But there's so many positives regarding the United States that people don't even touch on. They don't remember. They don't think of it or whatever. Gordon Sinclair, long before you were born probably, was on the radio show, and he did a speech on the Americans. Now, you can look it up on...
I don't need to look it up. I'm very familiar with it. It charted. It got under the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the point I'm trying to make.
Chris, that was decades ago, man.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was decades ago or not. The thing is, there's positives and negatives to everything.
So, Chris, if you've had a friend for 50 years and your friend punches you in the face, are you supposed to say, well, you've been a good friend for 50 years, I'm not going to worry about you anymore? Really?
The United States didn't punch us in the face. Trump did. And what did we, not me, because I didn't vote for him, what did Canada do? Elected Carney, the only person that can handle Trump. Well, he's done a real great job of handling it, hasn't he? Tell me one good thing Carney's done. What kind of deals has he made? What has he done to benefit Canada since he's been there for a year?
If you listen to the coalition of the 40 middle powers, that could be quite a powerful bloc because we can't trust our friend anymore. Chris, you're not ever going to agree with me on this. I know that, and we're going to agree to disagree. But the Americans elected that president of the United States, and they have to live with the consequences of that.
Look,
and that's the consequences.
I know, but Dan, I'm not a fan of Trump. You're maybe misreading this.
But
I'm not a fan.
I can't forgive them because they were good to us 50 years ago. And what they're doing to us now. Punch me in the nose. That's okay. You're our friend. Come on, man.
No, Dan. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you're taking it out of context, really.
Okay.
But anyway, just to go back to Carney for a second. What has he done? What has he done to benefit? And forget this middle power thing. That'll go nowhere. He goes to India, and what does he do? Makes a deal on uranium, supposedly. But who's going to benefit from that? Him and Brookfield. Brookfield and Cameco own Westinghouse that makes all the little
Chris,
nuclear
I thought
power.
More of you, man. I really did. They know that Brookfield's in a blind trust, right?
No. And it's in a blind trust, and Carney has forgotten that he owns it. Come on, Dan. You know better than that. While he was in India, why didn't he say to the Indian representatives, okay, you want our uranium, we'll give it to you, but drop the tariff on the canola? He didn't do that. Why didn't he do it? If you check, Dan, Brookfield has nothing to do with canola in any way, shape, or form.
Chris?
So I mean, come on, he's done what? Done nothing. He gave a whole bunch of money to Ukraine that we can't afford to give. We've given enough, I think, as it is. We can't afford to give that. There's too many people in our own country suffering for things to be handing out all this foreign aid all the time. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have been helped initially or whatever. It's gone beyond control. I mean, we just can't afford this any longer.
Chris, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Boy. Anyway, let's carry on and welcome Kevin to the show. Kevin, how are you?
Good morning. I wasn't going to call, and then you brought up a topic that I have firsthand experience of. So I live in a situation where we have an infestation of rats. I'm here in Dartmouth. And the lady that called there before him, she's absolutely correct in her assessment. What she told you, she's absolutely correct. I live on the basement floor, and my patio is on street level. And we go out there in the evening, and they start around supper time. And it progresses. As the night wears on, it progresses. So if you go through the parking lot 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, they're crawling, absolutely crawling with rats. We had a box to catch them put out here, and that was put out here in 2020, and it hasn't been checked since, to my knowledge. So just let you think about that one for a minute. Now, on the other hand, in the corner of the parking lot, there's 3 large metal industrial garbage cans and a bunch of small ones. And people don't help their cause either, because they can't because they can't throw the garbage in the cans. They throw them all over the ground. So on one hand, you've got a rat infestation problem, and on the other hand, you look at the garbage cans and you see garbage all over the bloody ground around the garbage cans. So people don't help their cause either.
Right.
But it's bad. It's bad. The rats. There are a lot of cockroaches, every kind of bug under the sun that you can imagine. And the situation is serious, and it's only going to get worse.
Appreciate you sharing, Kevin.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Remember that number, folks, because we're going to do this again on Monday. The Friday Free-for-All has come to a close. For those of you that we didn't get to, my apologies. And again, we'll be doing this again on Monday. We're getting ready. We're going to get an update on the news. I just saw a flash come across the wire service here, and according to the Associated Press, the United States has said now they're going to send 3 additional warships to the Middle East and about 2,500 more Marines. So more persons, I should say, and materiel, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and 3 more warships heading to the theater area, that is the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. News update coming up at the top of the hour. On the other side of it, show continues. We'll delve into hour number 3. What is happening with small business and all of this talk about inflation, gasoline prices, what's it going to mean into the first quarter and into the summer tourist season? A conversation with the vice president at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Louis-Philippe Gauthier, will be your guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes.
Acts.
Entertaining Friday Free-for-All, as it always is. I look forward to it every week, and I look forward to it again next week when we do this. Moving forward, of course, we've been watching the war in Iran. We've been watching the fallout from that. We've been watching, of course, the impact that the war is having here in North America, and particularly here in Canada, and that has to do with energy prices. We know that energy prices are right through the roof. We saw an increase in diesel fuel again last night here in Nova Scotia. We saw an increase in gasoline again overnight in Nova Scotia. Oil prices are in a state of flux. We don't know what's happening hour to hour, minute by minute. Sometimes it's up 1%, down 1%, sometimes up 2%. Gasoline prices continue to rise, up again another 2% in New York today, and that will have an impact, folks, on us at the grocery store and places that we frequent and do business, because everything that we purchase, a large majority of the things that we purchase, all come on a truck. And we know that business optimism in our part of the world has been less than stellar over the last few months, because of the uncertainty in the world, the ongoing tension with the United States and the President of the United States. And this can't help. Very pleased to welcome to the show for a little perspective on this, a conversation with the Vice President Atlantic CFIB, that is Louis-Philippe Gauthier. How are you, sir?
I'm quite well. Thank you for the opportunity.
I guess this is, it just seems that small business and medium-sized business in our part of the world and right across the country keep getting a kick in the gut, right? It just seems that it's one thing after another that's going to impact their bottom lines.
Well, it sure has been a merry-go-round year. Starting with, to your point that you just said in the intro, with all the ups and downs with the relations with our neighbors to the south, And now with what's happening in the Middle East, our barometer optimism that we track every month, and we've been doing it for 20 years now, optimism took a dive this month. Our members are concerned either over the next 3 months or 12 months, the two outlooks that we look at. And what does the data show? Well, price or their sensitivity to fuel, their concerns relating to it has gone up. And also with all the input products, because as you can appreciate, a lot of businesses need to buy things in order to sell things, and those will go up as well. So the reality of fuel prices is hitting the optimism, whether it be in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or any province across the country. Now, that's coupled with a series of other realities, and number one would be, just like consumers are watching their dollars and trying to do what they can with what they have, businesses have that reality. Consumer costs are up, business costs are up across the board. Of course, now it's going to be fuel and all the inputs that they buy. But that has an impact on consumption. Our members are reporting, or continue to report, that demand is soft. In other words, people aren't buying as much, and that's understandable. But that has an impact on the businesses themselves in a lot of instances. So when you look at the overall picture, it's a rough start to the year.
It certainly is, and it has been a rough couple of years, right? That we've seen small businesses really be at the brunt of all of these world events, and even struggling to come out of COVID.
Well, we've had fully shut down at COVID, and then when we got out of those lockdowns, we had our period of high inflation that we went through. Prices, the inflation itself has somewhat stabilized at a higher level than in the past, but all those higher prices haven't come down. So that's a reality that consumers and businesses are feeling. How does it translate right now in this moment in time? Well, it potentially will have. We'll have to wait until next month, in the coming months. Well, it might translate to higher prices from businesses. It might translate to lower hiring intentions over the medium term, depending on how long this situation goes on with. There's no question that when revenues are impacted and consumers are skittish, that businesses need to react. So we'll have to see, but it is a concern, at least through the data that we see from our members that they're communicating.
Tell me a little bit about what these high energy prices can mean. Are we going to see, we're looking at diesel prices today here in Nova Scotia, that $2.29 a liter, and that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, and that's a cost of goods that all businesses have to support, right? Because everything that comes into your store, for the most part, comes on the back of a truck. And on the converse of that, gasoline prices are high. That's a cost that Nova Scotians haven't essentially budgeted for, and that eats into discretionary spending. Are we in danger of a double-edged sword here, and Nova Scotians not being able to support local business?
Well, let's hope not. But the effects are going to be there. To your point, it's on the two sides of the coin. How are consumers going to react to higher fuel prices? And on the business side, well, it'll cost more. That'll be a reality. So what will be the end impact? As I mentioned, the chances are, if you're about to hire somebody or that you were about to make this investment in your business, are you more concerned right now? Are you holding back? Are you reconsidering certain things? And with the unfortunate reality of the last 12 months is, with all these external factors affecting business owners that are largely out of their control, it forces you to say, well, all right, where do I put my next dollar? What do I do with it? And those are tough choices. Business owners, just are looking to run their businesses and potentially grow and through reinvestment. And they have needs. Staffing's still an issue in certain pockets, in certain industries, in certain areas of the province. And with all this myriad, this is just added uncertainty. So it's at this point, at least, it's reflecting throughout all of our data.
We're coming on to the busy season, right? We know that we're going to see tourist season here in a very short time, and business is ramping up for that. With this, you may have already touched on this a bit. Does this change the way that that businesses are looking at the coming season and normally take on some staff, maybe not as many or maybe not at all?
It could. Depends on how bad things are going to get. You made the point at the onset of it changes hour per hour. It almost feels like we're going back to the early times of last year and the full first section of COVID that we went through. Uncertainty is definitely not something that business owners like. And you can deal with a lot of things when you're running a business, but when it's completely out of your capacity to change, you're just basically feeling as if you're riding on the back of a horse, just going for a run across the field. And where will it land? What will be the impact on your prices? Are we going to see higher inflation numbers? Of course, if we look at removing fuel, that's one thing. But on all the products that are getting bought and transported, time will tell.
Mr. Gauthier, appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
That is Louis-Philippe Gauthier, Vice President Atlantic of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. When we come back, a Nova Scotia artist has been longlisted for a prestigious prize for fiction, a conversation with author Jaime Burnet. When we come back, you're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. As we roll along here on a Friday afternoon, the book is called Milktooth. Its author is Jaime Burnet, and it has been longlisted now for the prestigious Carol Shields Prize, which is $150,000 and all kinds of recognition for the work that our next guest has done on this. Very pleased to welcome to the show to tell us a little bit about this, the author, Jaime Burnet. Jaime, how are you?
I'm so well, thanks. How are you?
Congratulations on this longlisting. That has to be pretty cool.
It's incredible. I'm absolutely stunned to have my book recognized on this list.
Tell me a little bit about Milktooth and the genesis of it. How did you come up with it and get to writing it?
Yeah, so Milktooth is a novel about abuse in a queer relationship. So it's a heavy read, but it's also about the life-saving power of queer friendship and found family, and ultimately about learning to choose yourself and build the life that you want and need, and reject, what you were taught was love, but that never was. So it's hopeful in the end. And I wrote it as a way to process my own experience, but through fiction.
Right. And it has obviously been well received in the literary community if you've been on this list.
Yeah, it's incredible to be on the list. The jury for the prize is very prestigious. Other writers, Carmen Maria Machado, Canadian author, Ivan Coyote, Métis author Cherie Dimaline, and American authors Tisha Filia and Chitra Divakaruni. And the other authors on the list, it's just so stunning to be included among them. They include, Megha Majumdar, whose her book is on Oprah's Book Club, New York Times bestsellers, Katie Kitamura, Pulitzer Prize winners. So I feel extremely shocked and humbled to be on this list with these writers.
This is your second book, correct? You wrote Crocus's Hatch from the Snow first, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Both published by local Nova Scotia publisher Vagrant Press.
And how important is Vagrant Press and Nimbus and all of these independent publishers for authors like you in Nova Scotia?
So vital. Milktooth wouldn't exist it wouldn't have ever been published if it weren't for Nimbus Publishing and Vagrant Press and Whitney Moran, the managing editor for the press. I'm so grateful that they exist and that they picked up the book, and that's why, it's especially heartbreaking that the government is eliminating the $700,000 fund that helps support local publishers, and is making so many other cuts to arts and culture in Nova Scotia right now.
That's kind of the exclamation point, right? If without those government assistance and without organizations like Vagrant Press, your book just wouldn't ever have been published.
It wouldn't have been, and I think that's what's so devastating, is that there are books being written now and being submitted to local publishers that may never be published because local publishers have had to reduce the number of books they'll be able to put out in a year, and those voices will not be able to reach their readers. It's really quite heartbreaking.
You certainly are busy, right? You're a labor and human rights lawyer. You do music. You write books. With the uncertainty, I will say, in the publishing industry here in Nova Scotia, is that going to change your view on perhaps writing something in the future? Are you a little leery that you're going to put the work into it and not get it published?
I'll always write because. I write because it's good for me, and it's an extra wonderful thing to get to put it out into the world and get to have other people read it. But I do have another book nearly completed, and I will seek to put that out into the world. But it is, I can see it being really discouraging to other writers, especially writing and trying to put out a first book, to see that the very slim chance of getting published has just gotten much slimmer.
Milktooth is before the jury now. There's a couple of big dates coming up for the Carol Shields Prize Award that is coming up here quickly on the 21st of April. We'll see if what the shortlist looks like.
That's right. Yeah, I have decided that the long list is good enough for me. I'm very happy with just the long list. I'm not expecting anything further, but it would be incredible. But mostly I'm just hoping to have time to read all the other authors on the list.
And that happens on the 21st. We'll find out who the winner is of this year's edition of the Carol Shield Prize on the 2nd of June during an event in Toronto. And we hope that we see you there.
I hope so too. Fingers crossed.
Jaime, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. You too.
Jaime Burnet is the author of Milktooth, which has been longlisted, I guess is the proper term, for the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. That's a $150,000 U.S. prize. That is the largest English language literary prize for women and non-binary authors in the world. So that's a pretty select list, I will say, as we move forward. We wish Jaime the very best. Getting ready to take yet another break here. As I mentioned, the Friday Free-for-All certainly was a lively discussion, I will say. And, of course, maybe some people disagreed with my tact on what Chris had to say with regards to the U.S. and that because if it wasn't for America, that we'd all be speaking German. And many of you are the way that the tide shift is very, very interesting for me to watch. You all suddenly, if I say I'm spouting off the CBC liberal bought off garbage again, and when did I do that? Right? Y'all criticized me just last week when I was calling out the Prime Minister for traveling too much, and that he should have been in the House of Commons for the emergency debate on the war in Iran. Maybe that was 2 weeks ago, but anyway. And some of you said that I was going to be on Fox News, and now I'm a left-wing lackey. So I guess if I'm upsetting both sides of the political spectrum, I guess maybe I might be doing my job right. Anyway, looking forward to it. Monday, we're going to do it again. So make sure that you're by your phone. And if you want to challenge me, by all means do so. That's the price I get to pay when I sit in the big chair here on the Todd Veinotte Show. Again, we're getting ready to take our break. We know that we're looking at some weather. Allister Aalders is in the house. He's pouring over his charts and his facts and his figures, and he's going to join us here right after the news at the bottom of the hour. and will give us the very latest. We know that we're expecting to see some flurry activity tonight, maybe some wet snow heading into tomorrow and through the weekend, but the bigger concern, at least I think, is what's in store for the beginning of next week. There looks like there's another system that's working its way into our part of the world. Allister's going to bring us up to date on what that means and what we can expect, and if it's time, folks, for us to put the shovel away, or maybe we should keep it around for a couple more days. That is still all to come here on the program. Got a little bit of an update on a story that we told you about and discussed here yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and that was the story of the MLA for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville, who was the victim of a blackmail plot. The latest on this, and this just came across my desk, is that the Nova Scotia police here in the province say the hacker behind a blackmail attempt on a member of the provincial legislature was trying to extort Bitcoin, which I think is normal operation for these folks. Bitcoin, as you heard from some of our interviews with police, is difficult to trace, right? RCMP's Hammonds Plains Lucasville MLA Rick Burns contacted them Tuesday about a hack on his computers. Mounties have been working with HRP's digital forensic unit. They declined to say if the hacker had an international or was a domestic actor, only revealing that it was part of an ongoing investigation. Burns says someone hacked his email this week requesting money, which his family refused to pay. He says the perpetrator then released personal photos and videos of him and his wife. As this story continues to unfold and we get more information from the police, we'll certainly pass it along to you here on the program. Time for us to stop and take that break. We're getting an update on the news, and on the other side of it, a conversation with our meteorologist, Allister Aalders. What's the weekend look like? We'll find out after the update.
X.
All right, welcome back. It's time for the look ahead into your weekend forecast, and I know our next guest has been poring over the charts and over the models and all of those associated things, and I don't know if we're gonna like what he has to say about the weekend forecast, but there's also a bit of a concern coming up for the start of next week, and we'll get to that in a minute. Very pleased to welcome back to the show our meteorologist. That's AA Allister Aalders. How are you?
I'm good, Dan, and welcome officially to spring.
It is. In fact, it's about an hour old now, right?
Yes.
So we're officially there, and this forecast is not spring-like.
No. I mean, we all know that, if we could, we would just flip a switch and everything would, change. But winter in Nova Scotia or spring in Nova Scotia usually means that we have to deal with winter just a little bit longer. And that is going to be the case, at least for the next little bit, with two systems really of note in the immediate forecast.
Let's start with Saturday and start with, I guess later this afternoon.
Yeah, so we have it's a fairly fast-moving system. It's been impacting southern Ontario this morning with kind of every type of precipitation you can imagine: freezing rain, ice pellets, rain, and snow. So it comes into our region late tonight. Some wet snow beginning overnight tonight, but temperatures will be rising, so we see the snow start to mix over to some rain during the overnight along the coast, and then fairly early, I think, on Saturday morning for inland communities, and then temperatures are well above freezing on Saturday, so we see just all rain showers during the day. It looks like, I would say 1 to 5 centimeters on average, with, the lower end of that scale, very little, if any, accumulation right along the coast. It will be as you move possibly the city, but more so inland in HRM, where we have the better opportunities for upwards of 5 before we mix over to the rain. And it looks like it could be, upwards of 10 to possibly 15 or 20 millimeters of rain. So that's something of note. Obviously, things will be a bit slushy, and we'll be dealing with more wet conditions.
Well, we did
on
see
Saturday.
some big rain this past week, right?
Yeah, very significant.
And we saw some localized flooding. Some of the traditional areas, I call them, that normally flood, were flooding. Is this going to be enough rain over the weekend to exacerbate that?
I don't believe so. Although I would say even on my drive in, there's some areas where the flooding is, the waters haven't completely receded. The water levels are still very high. So I mean, the weather that we're having coming through tomorrow, the rain should be, light to moderate in nature. The rain that we had, earlier in the week was very convective, so it was coming through in very heavy torrential bouts throughout the day. And it obviously dropped, in many cases upwards of 40 and 50 millimeters. But we had that report out of Windsor Park that it was closer to possibly 90. There were, some very localized areas of higher rainfall. So I'm not expecting, nearly as much rain. And obviously, a 10 to 15 or 20 millimeter rainfall is more manageable. But, certainly water levels are high and the ground is still partially frozen. So, dealing with a bit of runoff or maybe localized flooding, certainly possible, and areas where the streams and the rivers are already running a bit high, those levels could rise a bit on Saturday, but not expecting to the same extent of what we experienced earlier in the week.
Rain snow mix Saturday into Sunday?
Rain snow mix tonight into Saturday, showers on Saturday, and then it starts to clear out Saturday night to Sunday. So we get a bit of a break, maybe some flurries on the backside of the system with some cooler temperatures, but generally it's a fast-moving, fairly weak system, so it moves along, and we get a bit of a break Saturday night to at least the first half of Sunday.
And then Monday.
And then, well, it could be as early as Sunday afternoon or evening, but yes, late Sunday and Monday. This system has been very interesting to track. The models have been somewhat all over the place with it, but they're coming into better agreement, and I'm not quite ready to go into my final thoughts on snowfall just yet, but what I will say is that it looks like we see it coming, not quite when I say two pulses that there will necessarily be a break, but we have a bit of energy coming ahead of the system, which will likely bring a first round of snow. Timing still a bit uncertain, could be in the afternoon Sunday or the evening to the nighttime. That first piece of energy goes, and then we have a second piece of energy that comes in behind it, and it's slower moving, and it moves off the Atlantic coast. So we see the colder air remaining reinforced, keeping snow in the forecast throughout the day on Monday. Possibly, depending on the track, a bit of mixing with ice or rain, especially along the coast, but the system somewhat crawls along through Monday and then finally departs into Tuesday. Even Tuesday, there could be some lingering periods of very light snow or flurries to start the day. So this is a longer lasting, longer duration, more impactful weather event likely. There will also be higher winds. In terms of snowfall, like I said, I'm not going to go right on the record and say I think it's going to be exactly these ranges, but it does look like, based on what I'm seeing right now, upwards and in excess of 10 centimeters certainly possible, which is manageable. Just we don't like to deal with it, especially in the first days of spring. Some guidance certainly indicating that, north of 15 centimeters can't be ruled out. It really depends on where you are. So this first system coming in tonight and tomorrow is not really a major system. It's the Sunday night, Monday system that we really need to watch in terms of especially impacting travel conditions for that commute on Monday, and could be Monday afternoon too.
What are the temperatures looking like? Are we going to have to shovel that stuff?
Temperatures, it does look like, with the Saturday system, we climb above freezing. So I think we can probably let Mother Nature do most of the work there. It'll be quite close to freezing, I think, on Monday, with the potential for that mixing line coming close to the city, at or just below, I think, for most of the event. And if that mixing line comes a bit closer, just a bit above freezing. So it's a heavier wet snow compared to a lighter fluffy snow, unfortunately, which we are all tired of shoveling, and we would like it to be, easier. And, hopefully we will see some changes to the forecast this weekend. Some of the models were trying to hold it a bit farther south, but those models are becoming outliers. So going with the consensus right now, and that's what it's looking like at the moment.
So not a good idea to put the snow shovel away yet.
No, keep the snow shovel, maybe even the snow blowers, and certainly the snow brushes handy, because I do think we will certainly be needing them. Perhaps if you're out early tomorrow morning, you might need them, at least the snow brush, but certainly the shovels for Monday and maybe even into Tuesday.
Had a conversation with the DNR earlier in the show, Alister. I know you were listening, with the quick melt and the heavy rains that are washing off and filling the rivers, as you described.
Good news.
It is good news, but is it good enough news for those that are watching for their wells this year in the aquifers?
Yeah, so that is what I'm concerned about right now. And the drought monitor at the end of February still had most of the province in a moderate drought. Some were severe. Now, the issue with the drought monitor that at least I take right now is it did not account for the melt that we did have, which was very fast. And we're not sure how deep this drought is. You know, I heard from people earlier in the winter, you know, they were doing some digging when the ground was still able to be dug a bit, and they were saying it was pretty dry. You know, it's probably very much more of a it's probably not, you know, a complete, you know, we're seeing that restoration happen, but it might be a deeper drought. You know, we're starting to see those surface levels really replenish themselves. It's really hard to say. And the fact that we didn't have a lot of rain or melt through February, we don't really know where we truly stand. So I am a little concerned because the snow did melt very fast. And the rain that we did have earlier in the week was very heavy, so and the ground's still partially frozen. A lot of it just runs off. So it's good for the lake levels and the streams, because I know Halifax Water, I don't know if they were on our program, they were on with CTV saying that levels were still lower than normal, and this was before the melt and all the rain.
Right.
So it's good in that sense in terms of the
Drinking
ground
water,
itself
yeah.
and drinking water and wells. I think we'll have to really see how the rest of the month plays out and to get a better sense. I mean, I know people are listening and probably thinking there's absolutely no way we can still be in a drought with all the rain that we had at the back half of fall and all the snow that we've had. But obviously, you know, a lot of this hinges on it melting slowly into the ground. I mean, we lost it in less than a week. Right. So it's,
overnight almost.
Pardon?
Overnight almost.
Yeah, exactly. So, a little concerned about that, but if we can continue, you know, as much as we don't want the snow, this is helpful. Because the ground is starting to thaw, the snow that we do get when it melts is more likely to absorb into the ground. The rain that we get will be helpful. So, I think we'll get a better sense of where the drought actually stands from the update that we get at the end of the month versus the update that we got at the end of February, which was released, I believe it was late last week. So still a little concerned because all the plants and trees are going to start drawing on that moisture too, right? So obviously we'll start to see those levels, even if they've been replenished, drawn on again. So hoping that we continue to see, you know, certainly a bit of sunshine, but, you know, a nice balance too.
He's Allister Aalders. You can hear his forecasts every weekday in the morning and in the afternoon drives. Allister, have a great weekend.
You too, Dan. Thank you. And to all our listeners too, have a great weekend.
We will take a break, the last break here before we come back with our sports guru. Cecil will be in. The Blue Jays getting ready to start their season with a banged-up bullpen. Sits back with the Penguins, and the St. Mary Huskies upset at the University Championships. All of that coming up with Cecil after the break. Welcome back. You're almost there, folks. You can see the finish line, and that means it's time for us to welcome in our friend and sports guru. That is our good friend Cecil. How are you?
What's going on, Danny boy?
It is. You're a basketball nut, so this must be a crazy time for you with the March Madness underway.
I am mad about March. I am. So you're lucky I'm even taking this call. Usually I don't even, I hide the phone at this time of year. And there's a big game. Nobody's even talking about this. Big game coming up this afternoon around 3:30 our time. A young man from North Preston, Nova Scotia, Caleb Johnson, plays for Long Island University. They're taking on top-seeded in the West, Arizona.
Yeah, that's his tournament debut, they're calling it.
Yes, I can't wait for the game. Now, I don't expect them to knock off Arizona, because quite frankly, I thought Arizona, halfway through the season, I thought they had the chance to win it all from what I saw.
So it'll be upsets, though. That's the
oh my God! Isn't it? In Duke almost last night, I was like, "Come on, Sienna!"
Right.
Not that I hate Duke or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I just love an underdog story like that.
Yeah, and there always is. There's always a couple of Cinderellas, and I think, Canada's not as basketball mad as they are in the United States, particularly at the collegiate level. But I think that's why people here watch it is for those Cinderella stories, right?
Just waiting for somebody to be knocked off and have one of the big boys crying at the final horn.
I know you hold a special place in your heart for St. Mary's University here in Halifax, Cecil, and the hockey team is in the tournament here for the national championship, and lo and behold, beat the Saskatchewan Huskies, who were favored to win the tournament yesterday in overtime.
I saw that, and so now they're going to be playing Windsor, and that's going to be another battle. But I like St. Mary's chances here on home ice, we'll call it. And they've had a very, very prestigious hockey program, for many years. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. We're looking forward to watching the Huskies hoist the University Cup. Baseball season is almost upon us, Cecil. I know you're busy with basketball, but we're only a week away now from opening day. The Toronto Blue Jays bolstered their pitching staff heading into the season, and it's a good thing they did because, holy smokes, Bieber's out, Barrios is out, and now Savage is out to start the season.
Yeah, that's going to obviously losing Savage, who was incredible last year, really hurts Bieber. Holy cow, he always gives you some good innings. It's a good thing they got Dylan Cease to go along with Gosman, because at least they'll have two top tier starters right there. And when the other guys return from injury, they should be strong. But yeah, this is a bad time to have those injuries hit you.
Yeah, spring training, right? I always think that it's too long, and then we start to see people get hurt, right?
Well, it seems like everybody wants to start off having your pitcher throw one inning.
Yeah.
Then you build them up to 3 innings. Then you build them up to 5 innings, and then they hurt their arm. So maybe you should go with 2 innings, 3 innings, and maybe ramp them up a little bit more slowly than they do.
Scherzer's going to get one more start. John Snyder this morning said that he's in a good spot, better spot than he was last year. His thumb's in good shape, and the old dog still has some new tricks, so to speak.
Well, I don't have too much good to say about Scherzer. I really don't. Nice guy. I like the fact that he's so fiery and all that stuff. But what's he? 41?
Yep.
42?
40. I think he's 41. Yeah.
What are you expecting from the guy? Especially when you've got these other guys out injured. Are you going to expect Scherzer to give you 5, 6
quality
solid innings
starts
every time?
all season long, right down into the 8th
inning? Okay. Yeah. I'll take a bet on that one.
Did you watch the World Baseball Classic final, the Americans and the Venezuelans?
The answer to that question is a big resounding yes.
Wasn't it fun?
I'm not going to say that the Venezuelans would take them in a short series, because that American lineup was certainly impressive. But so was the Dominican lineup, by the way.
Right.
Might have been even more impressive. But the fact that Venezuela was able to win that tournament, I think, speaks to how baseball is gaining popularity around the world. Even, teams like Great Britain and Nicaragua and some of the smaller, lesser-known baseball countries are starting to become really, really good. And I think it's fantastic. I hope they allow these guys to go to the Olympics, and I can't wait to see it.
The Venezuelans not only beat the Americans, and we know that lineup, but they beat Japan too, which was stacked.
Yeah.
So they had an easy road to get to the final.
No, I don't think anybody could say that. Even the Americans, for crying out loud, they almost got knocked out. Remember?
Right. Then he almost didn't make the quarters. So
that wouldn't have broken my heart,
I think that you don't say. Cecil, the Baseball Classic, we never really know because it doesn't have a real set schedule when it's going to happen again. But I think that, with it becoming such a worldwide event, I mean, most people will suggest that the crowd was more pro-Venezuelan than it was pro-American in Miami in that final. So, maybe we see this more often. Maybe we see it every couple of years.
Well, the thing that stands out to me is the fact that Aaron Judge himself said he thought that this tournament was better than the World Series.
Right.
Now, to hear that from you or me, that might have very, very little meaning. But from him, Captain America, as they call him. I think that's a key point, and I think you're going to see more of the World Baseball Classic. I'd like to see it every 2 years, personally.
Yeah, me too. I think it should be like the Four Nations Cup. I think that it's that popular now. I think we might see it. Speaking of Four Nations Cup hockey, Sid the Kid back in the lineup and looking like he's going to make it at least help Pittsburgh make a run for the playoffs.
Well, I hope he does, and I feel sorry that he got injured in the first place, especially the fact that we go to the gold medal game without him and came very close to winning it, and it's hard not to believe that we wouldn't have won it if he was in that lineup, let me tell you. But I'm just glad that he's healthy, and I look forward to seeing him have a solid rest of the year.
And hopefully, we see him next year come back. He's getting a little long in the tooth, they say.
Well, it all depends on him personally. If he's physically able to do it, I'm sure he will. But
I don't think there's any doubt.
I don't think if I was him, I don't think I'd worry so much about putting all that pressure on myself as far as playing if I'm not feeling up to it. There are many other things that he could be doing.
Right, for sure. We all look forward to seeing him in a Penguins uniform. Cecil, we're almost out of time. I made a joke earlier in the show. I don't know if you heard it about the Toronto Maple Leafs. One thing is for certain this season with the Toronto Maple Leafs, that we know for a fact that they're not going to lose in the first round of the playoffs.
That's right. You know that. And I hope it wasn't me who put the hex on Austin Matthews. I mean, I never wanted the guy to get hurt.
No. What'd you think of the suspension?
5 games. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a repeat offender, right?
For me, it should have been the rest of the season, as far as I was concerned.
And playoffs included, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. Anyway, Cecil, have a great weekend, my friend. Enjoy the basketball.
All right, talk soon.
That is our good friend and sports guru. That is Cecil. And, folks, that's going to do it for this week and this edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Thank you to all of our guests for picking up the phone and joining the conversation. I hope that you learned something from these interviews we do. I certainly do, and I look forward to doing them each and every day. Thank you to all of you who joined the conversation in the open hours. I've often said and will continue to say that we may not always agree, but I certainly am willing to listen to your opinion on things, and I hope we can do that again on Monday when we open up the telephone lines at 11 o'clock. Vanessa Vandenez on a day off today. Blake Priddle, fantastic work on the other side of the glass for us today. Thank you very much, sir. It's going to be a weekend. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of a wet and maybe a snowy weekend, so if you're planning to get out and enjoy Nova Scotia, just keep that in the back of your mind. Those roads can get slippery at this time of the year. Until then, folks, have a fantastic weekend. Get out there, touch some grass. It's finally here. Be well. And remember, it's important to be kind to one another.